Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Devil Experience. My name is Eric. We are live for the Wolverhampton versus Manchester United preview. Is it Ruben's last chance? I feel like it's definitely got to be in terms of, if we can't beat Wolves, if he can't get a win against Wolves, if we can't go and beat the worst team in the Premier League, then I think just call the season on it. Just end it. There's no excuses to not get 3 points on Monday. There's just no excuses. So we're gonna break it down. We're gonna analyze it. Obviously, they're the worst team in the league, so they have a lot of bad statistics. But we're gonna dive deep into it. Also, United have apparently rejected a loan offer for Zirkzee from Roma. There's reasons to that. We're gonna get into those reasons that they have not liked some part of the offer in that. And we're also going to do some other Manchester United news that has come out today. So hope everybody is doing good. Make sure you smash the like button. Get that done. It helps other Reds see the channel. Helps us grow. We're trying to get to 3,500 subscribers. We are at 3,240. So if you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe. Join the family. Join the community. Get in the Discord. We got the link pinned in the pinned comment up there. But I'm just going to start off the show with pretty much just talking about this Wolves match. Let's just kick it off here. And this pretty much tells you everything that you need to know. I mean, we might as well just end the show here. This is Wolves' last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 matches in a row. They haven't scored in the last 5. They haven't won all season. They have 2 draws, and the rest are all losses. And for Ruben and for Manchester United, you know, there's the fan base. Many people are sort of kind of joking, but not joking, I guess, because if they don't laugh, they'll cry about it. But many people are saying, watch, United let Wolves be prime Barcelona against us on Monday. But, this team, and we were talking about it a bit in the Discord while we were sort of hate watch-alonging in the Discord, the Liverpool-Leeds match that just happened. And good job, Leeds. That's the only time you're ever going to hear me say that. Good job, Leeds. You did it. You did a job. I knew you were going to get a third. And extremely happy. But, yeah, listen, these guys, when we expect them to do shit, they tend to somehow get a result. I mean, if you need the most recent example, Crystal Palace. Many people were worried. Many people didn't believe that we were going to be able to win or think that we were going to go win. We were not favorites for that match in a particular way. And we went out there and we got a result. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't beautiful. But we did the job that we needed to do, which is to go and get a result away from home and get 3 points that were very important. But obviously, as we've seen, when we are favorites, and we are deemed as favorites, not by just our fan base, but in general, against Everton, against West Ham, we go out there and we don't do the job. We don't get over the line. We don't get the 3 points that we obviously clearly need. And many people are out here sort of cracking jokes that, United will probably make Wolves look like a top 5 team. But I kind of think, because it's split, maybe it'll go either way. But I mean, there's no excuses. Listen, we gotta beat Wolves. We gotta beat Wolves. For me, I still believe that, fans have their opinions. They're going to be angry. If you want him out, you want him out. And, if you make that decision, you should stick with it. If you want to stick by the manager, you have every right to do so. But for me, I can see how it could get turned around if you do get the results. But I can't trust this team. I can't trust these players. I don't think anybody should. Because how can you? Look what they do. We talked yesterday a lot, extensively, about how, I sort of see and how I sort of feel like not even Ruben is he's not trusting his players. I think Ruben feels quite anxious about his team. I think he makes decisions based on that, and it's coming from a scared sort of point of view. He's managing from a scared position, and it's not. I don't think he's scared for his job, because I think he's made it abundantly clear through all his actions and through his words that he said in the past that he ain't scared about getting sacked. You know, he'd rather not change his ways and get things wrong and get sacked than do things that he doesn't believe in. So I don't think he actually is scared about getting sacked. But he hates to lose. His team finds ways to drop points and lose. And I don't think he trusts these players to really get the job done. So it's a huge issue there. But to go into a little bit more sort of depth, I'll put it into a little bit more perspective, and I'll break it down in terms of, you know, current sort of streaks and how the teams are sort of performing and you know, what's happening in the matches, as I always do. And I use SofaScore for this, and I think I like this sort of aspect of SofaScore. I don't care too much about the SofaScore ratings. I think people who use SofaScore ratings to justify things is, I don't think it's a good look for your IQ of football knowledge, but different discussion. So, as you can see up on the screen, Wolves, 8 losses. They have no wins in 10. This is individual, by the way. No goals scored in a 5, as we just talked about. No clean sheet in 10. No, and then for Manchester United, no clean sheet in 7 for us. 5 out of the 7 the last matches we played, there has been at least 3 goals in the games that we have played. 6 out of the 7 last matches we have played, both teams have scored. 6 out of the 8 last matches we have played, we have been first to score. And 8 out of the 8 last matches that Wolves have played, they have been first to concede. So obviously, trending wise, we obviously need to look to score first. If we concede first, I'm telling you, it's probably going to be a really, really bad day at the office, because to allow that to happen when they have conceded first in 8 out of their 8 last matches, and we're scoring first in 6 out of our 8 last matches, we're obviously not doing what we're supposed to be doing on the pitch. And I think if you let them score first and we're away from home, I think it's going to be a very, very bad day. Now, the thing is, you know, they don't have a clean sheet in 10, but we don't have a clean sheet in 7. So, emphasis again, sort of just like West Ham and every other match we sort of played here, we cannot afford to score 1 goal and 1 goal only and think that we're going to get away with that, because our team, regardless of how bad Wolves have been, and they haven't scored in the last 5 matches, our team cannot afford to score only 1 goal on Monday versus Wolves. Can't do it. Can't give the opportunity to drop points. Can't give them the opportunity to try and draw the match or even beat us. I mean, if we don't score a goal and they score 1, you know, they win. So we need to be scoring goals. We need to put in a few. This match, in my opinion, the way it should go is that we play it and we comfortably win. In terms of we score 2 to 3 goals and we then control the rest of the match and we walk out of there without completely embarrassing ourselves and throwing the fans and the fan base into an even greater rage than it's already at. You know, they have one job: go win the match and get 3 points. Don't embarrass this football club. Don't embarrass yourselves. Don't embarrass the fans. Go out there, do the job. We go to the next game, and the next games are obviously going to be way harder. And this is why, you know, you can't not win, because if you can't beat Wolves, then we can't do anything this season. You know, it's just that it's the ending for me. It's the ending. You know, if you don't beat Wolves, then what's the point in the rest of the season? Because clearly we can then get beat by anybody at any time, And where are you going to find the consistency? And obviously, we need to find consistency. So, you know, I think it's one fairly straightforward. And listen, Ineos and Ruben Amorim, I mean, if he can't win this match, they seriously are gonna have to make the change that they don't want to do. I mean, they came out yesterday. I expected nothing less, but the report was that they're still backing Ruben Amorim at this stage of the season. And I always said, whether you agree with it or not, on paper it sort of makes sense because it's still sort of there. You can still, if we go into the next few matches and we win against Wolves and we get a result against Bournemouth and we get a result against a couple other teams, obviously things will flip around and change, and then the picture is quite different than how it's sort of been going over the last few matches and how it's looking now. Now, with the results in the Premier League that have happened today, Manchester United are down to 12th. We were in 8th. Obviously, we still have to play our match, and then obviously there's 2 matches tomorrow. We're on 22 points, and Chelsea are in 4th on 25. So with a win at Wolves on Monday, we can be level with Chelsea on points. We'll jump and hop skip Everton, who are on 24th. Palace still have to play tomorrow. Palace still have to play tomorrow, so depending on what they do, they are on 23. They're 1 point ahead of us. So if they win, then the highest that we could probably go is, I believe, 5th or 6th, because Chelsea has a better goal difference than us. And we're not going to be able to make up that goal difference in one match unless we score 10 to 15 goals versus Wolves, which is quite clearly obviously not going to happen because we don't even know if we can score 2. So, this is pretty much the ultimatum. I mean, either go out there and do the job that is you obviously clearly have to do, or lose your job. This is how I see it at this moment in time. But just checking to see who's playing the 2 matches tomorrow: Brighton, West Ham, and Fulham and Palace. So let me just make sure I get this correct. So Palace, Fulham. Where is Fulham? Fulham is in 15th. So if they win, they'll have 20. So that doesn't do anything to us in that sense. Or what it will do to us is if Fulham wins, it gives us the chance to go into 5th under Chelsea if we win. So we want a Fulham win for the benefit of our standing in the Premier League. And then there's Brighton versus West Ham. We obviously just played West Ham, but Brighton are in 10th on 22 points. If they win, they'll have 25, and they're the same as us. So we need Brighton not to win, and we need Crystal Palace not to win, and then we need to go win and do our job. Lucky says Mason Mount, Cunha, Ahmad, Diallo, Diego Dalot must start. Well, I'll give sort of a prediction to that, and I'll give what I would do. I'll give what Ruben's gonna do. Andresito says it shouldn't be in or out on this game with Wolves. LOL. Look at this entire season so far. It ain't good enough. But I think it comes down to this, Andresito. I know what you're saying, but I put it into. I sort of mix that context into this. It's not really just it. It's not really just about this. I mean, if we were doing well, that's sort of my whole point. If we were doing well and we lost to Wolves, obviously you don't say sack him because he's lost to Wolves and they're the worst team. But when you put it into the context of what is happening, the whole point for me is if you can't go and get 3 points against a team that literally has 0 wins, 2 draws, and the rest are losses this season, they are the worst team. And you combined it with the rest of the results we just did in the past 3 to 4 fixtures, especially, then what's the point? Because clearly we're not going to be able to do anything. The whole thing was we were on a decently good run in terms of we were 5 unbeaten. After that, we started, and even in that, the 2 draws that we had, they should have been wins. We should have got the job done. We didn't do that. That was the starting point of the team starting to go backwards and falter again. And then these past results in that, not being able to beat a 10-man Everton and not being able to secure the win against West Ham, and both those matches are at Old Trafford, those results have consequences. If we won those matches, the outlook is better. We're in a better position. We have more points, and people aren't going to be talking the way that we're talking. They might not still be happy. They might still be demanding that, it should be better and it's still not good enough, but it's worse now. And so to come out of this, because we did what we did, if you play a match like this is always a must win. But now it's like triple the stakes, in my opinion, because you just can't lose this match. And if you do lose this match, then there's nothing more to really say about this team and the manager and the direction that it's going. So we all know he's not going to get sacked. Like we knew, he wasn't going to get sacked after the result against West Ham. He was always going to be here at Wolves, but and because we know Ineos' standpoint. But what I'm saying is, if you don't get 3 points, a draw ain't good enough. A draw is shit. A draw is a loss. There's no draw. There's no loss. If you get 3 points, he's gonna be here. If he doesn't get 3 points, I think Ineos then seriously have to take their head out of their ass and do something that they clearly don't want to do. I mean, they don't want to sack this guy. They don't. They want it to work. They're desperate for it to work. They want it to turn around. They are desperate for something to happen because they don't want to actually sack him. They don't want to make this move. Number one, they have to own up to that they got it wrong. It's on their heads completely 110%. And the only way that they can sort of escape that is if this somehow turns around and gets better and actually something good happens. So, but if you lose to Wolves, the pressure, more of the pressure goes more to Ineos because right now the fan base is angry. And maybe I would say it's about 60-40 in that people feel like sack Amorim. Because I think with these sort of 2 past results, he sort of just lost the majority of support. I think he still retained a decently good amount of support, but after yesterday especially, I think he lost a lot of it. And if you lose this match, it's going to go even higher against Ruben Amorim. And then more of the pressure goes onto Ineos to actually do something. And when that happens, at some point, they can't continue to come out and say, we're still backing Ruben, when the percentage of support for the manager is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So, under Caesars, I'm praying for 5th place, manager in or out. We have the squad to fight for 5th. Cheers. Well, listen, I still want, and this is the difference. I still want us to go win. There are many people out there, and I think I can kind of understand it, but I don't agree with it. And I think it's a bit sad that there are people out there that they are very Ruben Amorim out. They hate him. They dislike him very much, and they believe that he is the ultimate problem. And so for them, they rationalize it as they don't want Manchester United to go win because they want him to get sacked, like how I kind of just explained. And so they want us to go and lose to Wolves so that he can actually get sacked because they also understand the ramifications of this. If you lose to the worst team in the Premier League and they have 0 wins and you give 0 wins, how does that look? Absolutely horrible. So I've always said I will never ask for my team to lose. I want my team to do good. Ruben in, Ruben out. I don't care. I want the team to do good. I don't care if Ruben's here. I don't care if he's not here. If he's here, get the results and do better. And that's what I want. If he's not here anymore, whoever comes in, do the same thing. Get the results, do better. Put us in a good position. I want the club to finish in a good position. So this is sort of, what's happening here. Box is here. What's up, buddy? How you doing? We're just talking a little bit about the Wolves match and, thoughts and opinions. And, the fan base is very angry. Like, the fan base is very angry. I get the anger. I think some people's points are not that valid. I think there's a lot of agenda-driven things instead of, sort of facts and being rational. But in general, I mean, the fan base is very, if they're not angry, they're sad. If they're not sad, they're disappointed. Maybe they're all three. And I can get people, feeling their emotions for each. But I can also see the other side, which I always try to do and look on the other side. I don't try to, just look on one way. I try to look on sort of all around. And if you get 3 points on Monday and you bring us up to 5th or 6th, but level on points with Chelsea, who are there, then obviously it looks better. And then it depends what comes after that. And if we beat Wolves and the next 3 matches we play, we lose them all or 4th, then obviously the gap's going to get bigger. And the story comes back into he's going to have to go. This is all results-based driven. It was the same thing for Erik ten Hag and every other manager before the one that we have. You want to stay here. You want to be given the chance to turn things around and continue. Then you need to ensure and make sure that your team goes out and gets the job done. And you have a responsibility to try and do that at the very least. And if they fail you, I mean, I'm not going to let the players be absolved of shit performances on the pitch, but he's obviously part of that as well. So, now I will give sort of I don't have the lineup on my screen, like I did last week. I kind of forgot to put it in, so that's my bad. But I mean, in terms of a predicted lineup, I mean, I feel kind of stupid doing this in terms of what I think Ruben's going to do, because I think we know exactly what he's going to do. I think he's going to do exactly what he's been doing. I don't think he's going to change anything. He's not going to make any of the changes that people are saying. He's not going to start Kobe Manu. He's not going to, do some of the other things. He's not going to change the formation. He's not going to change. He's not going to do anything. He's going to do the same exact thing that he's been doing all season, which is he's going to play Lemons. He'll probably play Euro. If De Ligt is back, I don't think we've gotten an update on that, but if De Ligt is back, De Ligt will be in there. Luke Shaw will be in there, and then he's going to play Ahmad, Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, and he's got to play Delo. I mean, and I would expect him to play Delo. Apparently Delo signaled to come off because of an injury, and that's why he apparently took him off. And that was reported by Laurie Whitwell. So if Delo is fit, and maybe it was a minor knock, and it wasn't bad, and maybe he'll be ready to go by Monday. I expect Delo to be back in there, and then, the front three. Maybe the one change he does is he puts Mount starts. And you got Brian and Mbeumo up there, and he goes with Cunha. Because I think it's quite clear that he still favors quite highly Mbeumo and Cunha, and he does like Mason Mount. And I think when you look at it, I mean, to be fair to Zirkzee, he didn't score. I still don't really necessarily like him as a striker. I think he's better as a 10 for us, and he did a good job in terms of, when he was on the pitch, he was doing a good job in terms of using his body, his strength. West Ham in the last match, they are a tall and big team, and he was one that was helping us in that area because the rest of our team is small, and he was using his body quite good. There was times when he was shielding the ball and holding the ball up. That was good. Could have quite possibly should have had a goal there. I mean, that was one of our best chances. If you have maybe an actual striker with some striker instinct, maybe it goes in, maybe it doesn't. But, what formation would you play with this set of players? I don't know. I try to think maybe like a 4-2-3-1. I'd get Kobe in the team for sure. Maybe a 4-3-3. I'm giving it some thought. I'm just trying to see if the pieces fit where they need to go. I'd get Kobe in the team for sure. You'd take Bruno. You'd put him in the 10 if you do a 4-2-3-1, and then out wide. What do? Put Cunha out there, but maybe not make them wide, or maybe make one wide and one a little bit more central, and then you have the striker. So you get Cunha and Buemo in there, or you get Mount in there and put Cunha as the striker. I mean, we could do a couple different sort of formations with this team, but obviously under him, it's not going to happen. And I still, regardless, I don't think he should do it because I still agree with some part of the fact of that he made it clear since day one that he was going to do his way, and I still believe that a manager trying to play a way that he clearly doesn't play and clearly doesn't know much about and clearly probably doesn't have like a full plan for it, I don't think will like make much of a difference. I think probably for his best opportunity is to try and make his formation and system work. Obviously the biggest problem he has is that he refuses to change personnel. I think if you keep the system in formation and you switch around some of the personnel, I think he could probably have a better chance of making it work. But when you refuse to do either or, then how do you expect, or how can you see that things are going to improve and change? Because you're not changing anything. You know what I mean? You're doing the same thing, and it's sort of my argument that I have to the fan base when we have like these discussions of like constantly sacking managers and chopping and changing, and we go in the same merry-go-round. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And he's doing that, to his level, and we do it in different ways in the fan base as well. So, back four says box ? I mean, you could. And there are managers out there. You could do probably a 4-3-3, but I think we would be a bit thin if we do a 4-3-3. But I mean, if you do a 4-3-3, for example, you could have Bruno, Cass, and Menu. You'd obviously have Ugarte as a backup, and then I guess we would have to use Mason Mount. I don't know if how good that will be, but you could do it. You could try it. It's not like it's impossible to do. And we have our wingers, and you have Diallo going back into winger, and Cunha and Brian and Buemo. And the back four, I would consisted of at the current moment, De Ligt and Euro. Get Delo. Wait, yeah, get Delo or Maz as right back, and I would go to see if I could. If you can put Luke Shaw at left back, I'd put Luke Shaw at left back, and go from there. So, Casemiro, Meno, Fernandez, midfield 3. Yeah, you could do that. But we're not going to get that, obviously. The only way we get that is getting a new manager, and it depends on what manager. I mean, if the manager is Xavi, he'll probably play a 4-3-3. If it's not Xavi and it's somebody else, they might play a 4-2-3-1 or, some variation of that. I mean, a 4-2-3-1 in a certain sense is kind of like a 4-2-3. This is why, like, the actual number of how it lines up on paper isn't like that important. It's really about the shape it takes place on the pitch, and like where the players are actually positioning and how you make them play. Because a 4-2-3-1, like, and I still have this argument, like, we play 5 at the back and people say it's defensive, but like you can make almost basically any formation defensive, because if you line up in with 2 defenders in the back, but you have 11 players behind the ball and you're sitting back, well, then it's a defensive formation. So like a 4-2-3-1, you can play it defensive, but you can play it attacking. You can play high up the pitch. You can play, it can be quite attacking or it can be quite defensive. It's all about how you set them out to play. So that's why I always say, like, to me, to a certain level, the actual number that they put on paper, whether it's a 4-2-3-1, a 4-3-3, or it's a 3-5-2 or a 5, whatever, a 5-2-2-1, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. It's all about how it's being executed. Are we sitting back? Are we trying to counterattack? Are we being cautious going forward? Are we high up the line? Are we pressing? Are we high up the pitch? Are we pressing? Are we trying to attack a lot? This is the thing, so that's why I don't really buy that, the whole thing is that, it's a defensive formation, because it can be both. It just depends how you play it out. Amorim needs a bit of variation, surely. Becoming too predictable, it has its drawbacks. To a certain extent, yes. But his argument, again, is that depending on who he plays where and what players he picks, it changes the way the team plays. So again, the number stays the same. But I think that's all why we sort of made the argument, and that's why he was asked the questions of why couldn't you put, you didn't make more offensive substitutions. And quite clearly, obviously, if you're playing his system and you have the midfield two of Casemiro and Ugarte, it's more of a defensive call than if you put Casemiro, Bruno, or Casemiro and Maino, because obviously Maino is seen more of an attacking player than he is a defensive player. And that's sort of his whole argument and basis of his thing. He doesn't have to on paper make it a 4-back, in that, it's always constantly a 4-back. It's about who he puts on there. But again, then it's about him actually doing that with the personnel. And that's why I always just break it down to personnel, because it is personnel. His system is his system, but the personnel that he chooses to pick and play, that's why he's not helping himself. That's why things aren't changing, because he's not doing that. So, raises my theory of Ruben not playing Maino, and still need a midfielder, so let him be on the bench. Says he's not good enough for now, and he's forcing to get another midfielder. I don't know about that. I mean, it doesn't really. Could be. I mean, if he just doesn't really want him and he wants somebody else, and he's like, well, if I use this kid and he does good, then I'll get one less midfielder, and he really wants specific players. But we've always needed the midfielder anyway, regardless. And I think they all sort of know and agree on that. Like Ruben, Jason Wilcox, and everybody, even Vivel and all these other guys. I think they all know that regardless, we needed another midfielder. And that midfield, needs work anyway, regardless of Kobbie Mainoo, and, if he would do such a thing, to do something like that. I feel like that's quite cynical in terms of doing that. That would be completely unprofessional if he's doing that as well. And I find that a bit hard to believe that that's happening. I honestly, I just think that he is very strict and stubborn about what he believes, and he doesn't believe that Kobbie has the qualities at this moment, and even based off of his comments, he doesn't have the qualities he has at this time, and he is then picking these guys over him. And he obviously he favors Bruno. Bruno has to fit into the team somewhere. In his opinion, Bruno has to fit into the team somewhere. And Casemiro is basically the only good defensive player. Because listen, everybody feels a certain type of way for Kobbie, and I get that. But what I try to do is I'm trying to look at Ugarte to kind of separate that, because Ugarte is the defensive player and is supposed to be, or Casemiro's replacement, or somebody that can play instead of Cas. And Ugarte is not playing really either. I mean, he's only started, I think, twice this season, and that substitute appearance last game against West Ham was, one of his few. He hasn't played a lot of minutes either. So that's why I keep saying, I don't think there's some sort of personal vendetta against Kobbie. I think he really truly believes, and he's made up his mind, and he's refusing to change his mind on it, because he doesn't believe that it's the problem. I think he's looking at other things, and he's saying these are the problems, and not what people are talking about are the problems. And that's why Ugarte is not getting in either, and that's why Cass is there, because he looks at it and he goes, Cass or Ugarte, and he goes, Cass is clearly way ahead of Ugarte. So Ugarte backseat. I don't care if you were my player. I don't care what you did at Sporting for me. You're not going to help me right now. And this whole thing with Bruno playing there, he obviously rates Bruno as a very good player. I think there's holes in that argument to talk to him about and ask him about and question him about. And he keeps going sort of back and forth between he can play, he says Kobe can play 10, but then he says Bruno's playing in his position. So, we'll go off the basis of Bruno's playing in his position. He quite clearly thinks that Bruno is way better at playing that position than Kobe can play. Doesn't mean he's right, but this is his decision-making process. This is what's happening. Then Mbeumo play in a 2 up front with Wisa. Could even try Sesko and Mbeumo front 2. I don't get why managers are so welded to philosophy. Football is about winning games and cups, being successful, not a vanity project of being a guru with a mantra that's lauded in football circles. And you have to adapt the same way players are asked to adapt / adjust. Managers have to as well. I mean, they do, and you need to. And, if you don't, then you're not a very good manager, are you? And you won't have a very good career. And, maybe you have to learn the hard way, and maybe later on you adjust in your career and life, and you say, you know what, I fucked up there, and maybe you don't see it in the moment, and maybe you see it later, or maybe you just don't. It's kind of quite like human beings in sort of any aspect of life. Sometimes you don't see the fuck ups you're doing while you're in the moment, and later down the line you look back on it and you go, no, I was wrong, and you change your ways and you go forward from there. So, but football is a bit like that. I mean, you've heard players in recent times come out and sort of complain that, even Bruno Fernandes, we didn't really talk about it, but Bruno Fernandes a few days ago, came out with a whole statement basically shitting on systems, and because he's like, the game is being killed with individual brilliance, and you can't, the way it's managed, the way players are forced to play nowadays, there's a reason why we don't see Ronaldinho's. There's a reason why we don't see sort of like Neymar's, and these other players, because football has changed and it's become a lot more system driven and systematic, and that has led to an aspect of it being sort of robotic, and this is what's happening. But that doesn't mean every manager is like that. There's some managers that have a better balance out there, for sure. And he's just one that he doesn't seem to have it. Not in this moment. Maybe he can, but maybe he can't, and maybe it's too little too late. It's just frustrating, as I want Amorim to be here for a long time, but while he's waiting to get numerous numbers of players in to fit his ideal 11 tactics, we still have to keep a certain standard on the pitch in the meantime. Yeah. And but that's my whole sort of thing, Box. Like, has been basically my whole spiel the entire time. Like, I 100% agree. And I'm also in that camp, but at the end of the day, and this is why I always do what I do, I let it play out. I give them the opportunity. And if you fuck it up, you fuck it up, and you got to deal with the consequences. So, he's making his decisions and his choices. If it leads to bad results, then it's on him. And, I can't feel sorry for him for that. I gave you the opportunity. I gave you patience. I gave you trust. And if you fuck it up, then, it's on you, man. And, if you fail and you lose your job and you make us basically be shit, then, I can't support you. I can't back you anymore. You did what you did, and, deal with it now. You had every opportunity to change things. You can change them. You refuse to change them, so reap what you sow. If it works, it works. Congratulations. If it doesn't, then bye-bye. And that's it. It is frustrating, but at the end of the day, we don't have control over it. He's his own man, and he's in this job. He took this job, and he has fucking coaching badges, and he's been a manager for 6 years. He should be able to do these things that, we might see as quite frustrating. But if he doesn't do it, then clearly he doesn't belong here, because, he's not doing the proper job. He's not doing the proper job. I have no problem with always giving people a chance, unless your name is Gareth Southgate. I will never give that guy a chance, because he doesn't deserve one from the beginning. But other than that, I mean, like, let's just play it out. If he gets sacked, whoever we bring in, again, unless your name is Gareth Southgate, and some I'll like more than others, but I'll still give them every opportunity to prove themselves. I'll still give opportunity to see, what their system and their style of football and how they handle different situations across the season, and, when shit's happening. I'll give you every opportunity to show, what you're about. But then, based on that, your decisions have consequences. So if you make the wrong decisions and you make them too many times and you lose your job, tell somebody to play the world's smallest violin for me. It's over. At the same time, it has to be said that the players have a responsibility too. They absolutely do. Whether it be in training, on the pitch, during games, attitudes, etc. When the manager is failing, sometimes they hide behind that too easily. They do. And that's why I try to keep the balance of this, because, again, it's not all on the manager. And it's never all on the players. This is, again, it's football. It's a sport. It's a team sport. There is more than just it's just the players, or it's just the manager. I mean, even it goes above the manager, the people that are running the football club. Like, and how many times did I say this, and we talked about it in the past? This club cannot achieve the ultimate goal of winning titles, the highest titles, the Premier League and the Champions League, until everybody is doing their part the way they're supposed to, and everybody is on the same page. So if Ineos are fucking up, then the manager is going to be fucked up, and the players are going to be fucked up, because they're at the top and it trickles down. If Ineos are doing their thing and the manager is fucked up, then the players are going to be fucked up, and it's not going to work. If Ineos are doing their thing and the manager is doing their thing, but the players are fucked up, then it's not going to work. So you need all three aspects to be clicking and on the same page. And until we get that done, there's always going to be some sort of dysfunctionality going on. Undero says, hi all. If we lose on Monday night, then that has to be it for Amorim. Playing within this system doesn't work with this group of players. We will finish below 10th if we continue down this road. Well, again, just to put it in perspective, I mean, before we played West Ham, and we got the result that we did, we were in 8th, and we were 4 points off 4th. Now, we're still technically 4 points off 4th because of the way results have gone, but we were also 4 points off of 15th. We are now 12th, and we are 5 points off 15th. So we're kind of basically still where we are, and I agree on Darrow, and this is the whole point of the title and the show. You can't not get 3 points against Wolves. If you don't get 3 points against Wolves, it's got to be over. And I'm gonna be honest, when I say it's got to be over, I say it's going to be over from the fans' point of view. I think you don't get 3 points. I think in terms of buying back in from the fans, I think he has absolutely zero chance. And we all know, once you totally lose the fans, you lose the players, and it's over for you. Nothing good is going to come out of that. You're not going to be able to climb your way out of that hole in that aspect, because what happens is we lose to Wolves. The next match we go play, those players aren't going to get a result. They're not going to put in a performance. and it's just going to go downhill from that. So he can't afford to lose to Wolves. Do we lose to Wolves and Ineos sack him right after the game or the next day? I don't know. I think that is totally up in the air, and my gut tells me no. My gut tells me they won't do it. They won't do it, and they'll try to hold on for as long as possible. Maybe they do it. Maybe they get a bit of a spine if that happens, and we do lose. Maybe they get a bit of a spine. Even a draw isn't good, but maybe they get a bit of a spine and they just say, you know what, we have to own this and we need to make this change. I mean, listen, they had no problem sort of doing it to Ten Hag, so if this result goes this in the way of a loss, or a draw and not a win, then they should hold the same. They should keep the same energy that they had for Ten Hag. You know, again, there shouldn't really be favoritism. We should give opportunities to people. We should allow them time to see what they're about and give them chances and, you know, get behind them and support them. But once you start burning that, you know, for me, we talk about consistency. Well, you know, the guys up top, they need to keep the same energy. They need to be consistent in the way that they're running the football club. You can't do what they did to Ten Hag and then be like, oh, but you know, Ruben is special or something, because you just don't run it like that. We either have a standard and sort of an ethos and sort of like, you know, rules at this football club that we abide by and it goes for everybody, or, you know, we pick and choose when to do it. And picking and choosing when to do it doesn't work. It doesn't work in any aspect of society. If you have laws against murder and you pick and choose, well, you know, that guy, he was a little, you know, look at the circumstances he came around. No. Murder is murder. You do murder, it doesn't matter the circumstances. You get the punishment for murder. So, you know, it's the same thing here. Like, at some point, especially if you lose to Wolves, you can't be like, you know, Ineos can't be like, well, we got to bend it a little bit because it's Ruben. You know, that doesn't work at all. And it's definitely not acceptable at a club like Manchester United. So, it looks like between 4th and 16th, there isn't much separating the quality this season. There isn't. That's why it's still very tight. It's very inconsistent from all those places. But the problem is, Fox, because I can see it happening. All it takes, that's too many teams. From 4th to 16th, there's too many teams. And there's only so many spots. And all it takes is 3 players. We're seeing one now in 3 players, 3 teams. We're seeing one now in Villa. You know, if you look back a couple weeks ago, where was Villa? They were below us. They weren't playing good at all. They're now above us and they're pulling clearer ahead of us because they're finding consistency and they're finding form. Or they have found it. And now they're on their way. And all it takes for us to get put absolutely in the mud is another 3 teams minimum to do the same thing and us to continue the way we are, and it's over. It's over. So right now we are still in the position that we could be one of those teams if we do what we need to do, if he changes things, if he can pull out results. But if we continue the way we are, then we are not going to be that team, and other teams are going to figure it out. There will be teams in that table that will figure it out, that will get consistency, and we will be not in the conversation anymore. You know, it might be down to luck. It might just be the way things are. Whatever you want to jot it down to, you want to say he's lucky because, you know, look at the league and how it is. For me, I don't really care about that. All I care about is that in the circumstances, it is what it is right now. And you make do of what you got. You know, you play the hand that you're dealt. And the hand that we're being dealt is right now we are in a conversation because the league is just as about consistent as we have been. But your job is to go and find that consistency and pull through. And if you can't do that, then you fail. And if you fail, you gotta deal with the consequences of the failure of that, which is ultimately your job. And just to bring it back to the players, that aspect then goes on to Ineos, because ultimately they are the ones who ultimately decide at the end of the day. I mean, the manager will have some say, but it's a majority thing. It's a group thing. And if the rest of them agree that that a player shouldn't be here, then the manager gets outvoted on it, and he's going to have to deal with it. And on the players, they shouldn't escape responsibility. And it is Ineos' job to be sort of evaluating this and say, Ruben had faults, Ruben made these mistakes, but also, this player did this during this time and clearly wasn't pulling his weight or whatever specifically. And when the time comes, you get that player out of the football club. That is their job. Their job is to hold both the manager and the players responsible. And again, that's why they need to be consistent. That's why they need to be, level across all aspects, because you can't just go and then hold. Ultimately, they are the ones that make the ultimate decisions with the consequences. Fans, some people will be level-headed and blame both. Some people will solely blame the manager, as we've seen, and some people will only solely blame the players. But at the end of the day, us doing that, the impact of it is slim margins compared to the people actually running the football club, who can actually take real actions that will change things. So, any other manager will know how to adapt during matches. Look at Emery today versus Arsenal and Farke versus Liverpool just now. Adapt and manage situations. Amorim doesn't do this. Same again Monday. I think, I would argue that he attempts to adapt, but his choices are wrong. Because I think to say to not adapt would mean that he doesn't make substitutions. He doesn't try to put on, different players and, in his opinion, change the game in the way that he sees it. But I guess it would go to, he doesn't know how to adapt because he's getting the calls wrong. But I don't think it's like, I think for me it would fit more to say like he doesn't know how to adapt. It would be like he just sits there and does absolutely nothing. Which I guess you can argue, because, I mean, in a sense, the decisions he makes to try and affect the game, they are wrong and they don't work. They go against us. So, since Leeds have gone to a front two at halftime versus Man City last week, they've picked up big results. Everton fifth is crazy. And this is what I'm saying. Like this season, this league is insane. It is. Like, Everton is in fifth. Where was Everton not too long ago? And this is what I'm talking about, finding consistency and finding form. Like, everybody in these positions from like 4th to 15th or so, or 16th, everybody's in the same boat right now. And that's why he's still here. Because if the league table was different, he might not be here. They might have had to been forced to sack him, because if there was more consistency with some more teams, we could easily, right now, the context could be very different. With the opportunities that we've blown and squandered, we could be 12 points off of 4th right now at this point in the season. We're not 12 points off of 4th, but if the context of the league was different, we could be 12 points. Being 12 points off of 4th at this stage of the season, how can they defend that? But obviously, they're weaseling their way into defending this because, again, when you point it out, and some people won't care, but that's fine. You don't have to care about it, but you have to understand that this is what's happening at the football club. And they're quite clearly looking at this, and they're going, well, mathematically, there's still a chance. Mathematically, if you get a couple results, and you get some wins, and you get some points, then the conversation will be different. The picture's going to be different, and we can continue to back it, and we have a leg to stand on. But if it doesn't happen that way, then you have no legs to stand on. Then that's it. So this is what is happening at the football club right now. I see us getting 7 points out of the next 15 available, which will mean likely be around 10th to 11th at best. Well, it depends about the other results as well. I mean, I don't know. But I would expect a couple of these teams. I don't know who it's going to be because I'm going to be honest. It's too inconsistent to sort of determine which team it's actually going to be. It's far too inconsistent between all the teams, and all the points are quite close. But Newcastle is starting to do a bit better. You know, maybe I mean Palace is there. They could start to get a bigger of a gap. But yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, you would have to look at all the other teams, how they're performing, what fixtures they got coming up as well, and then listen. Football is football at the end of the day. It's a weird place. You know, there's always matches where you expect a team to get a result, they don't get a result, and things happen that we can't explain or really foresee a lot of the time. So you just got to let it play out. That's all it is. You just got to let it play out and see what happens. And when we're there, we're there. And then we talk about, what it is that's right in front of us. A manager makes tactical changes and substitutions based on identifying what other managers are doing. Being organized and prepared, the subs have no logic to them. Look back over the games, scary. Well, maybe he's doing subs not based off of what you're saying in terms of he's not looking at, maybe his changes are he's not making changes based off of identifying what other managers are doing, because I'm looking at the changes that he made specifically at West Ham, and I think you could probably make this assumption for when you look back. I think the changes he made at West Ham is clearly, it wasn't really about what West Ham were doing. It was about he doesn't trust the team to see out that result. That's why he went for Ugarte. That's why he didn't put Manu on. He got the call wrong, because ultimately we still conceded, and then we ended up dropping 2 points, and we didn't get the win. But I think he's looking at it, and I think I don't think he's making the changes based on the opposition. I think he's making the changes based on how his team is performing and how he feels his team is. And if he doesn't trust these players, because we're at 1-0, we struggled to score a goal, we created some good opportunities, but we're not putting the ball into the net. And I think he sat there and he looked at it and he said, internally, I think he probably believed, he's like, we're probably not going to get another goal. He said, I hope we do. But realistically, I need the 3 points, so I'm going to go defend this. And he made those changes because he's looking at his team and he's like, these guys, the way they're playing right now and the way they're handling things, they're not going to be able to do this. And he made his changes, but the changes aren't right because they play into West Ham. They play into the opposition, in that what we always needed to do was to get another goal. And I actually think that when he looks at the team, I think he was actually, honestly, he was scared in terms of that. He doesn't trust them, that he was like, if I put on a more attacking player or I go more attacking, I don't trust this team to not concede. And I actually think he feared that if he put on offensive players and went more offensive in that match, that not only would we concede 1, but we would concede 2, and then we would get 0 points. So I think he desperately made the changes to try and get the 3 points at 1-0. And ultimately you fail, because you're never really going to do that. And obviously the counter argument to that is we concede goals regardless. But he got the call wrong. He got the idea that he had was wrong, clearly, because the result went in that way. How you go from my manager of the month and player of the month to the shittiest games we ever saw? Well, I mean, I know what you're saying, and it is a good point. I don't necessarily know how to explain it, or maybe the answer, other than just saying it's kind of what we do, isn't it? You know, we are just, you know, I kind of feel like at this moment, if you opened up a dictionary and you went to the word inconsistent, there'd just be there wouldn't be any words. It'd just be a picture of Manchester United's crest, and that's it. And you know how it actually happens, step by step, to go to that. I don't know how to break down that process, but for me, I think it's just quite clear. Like we somehow managed to find out how to be inconsistent as fuck, and ultimately that's how you do that, because you can be hot and then all of a sudden you're very cold, and you're like two different teams, performing two different, totally different ways. You have two totally different feelings and aura about you. You know how it happens. I don't get it. I don't know if he gets it. I don't think he really understands it, because by the things he says, he seems to be confused and perplexed about it. He doesn't seem to have a fucking answer for it. Although sometimes he does say he thinks he has an answer for it, but he seems unsure about it. But yeah. But Amorim said recently that Dorgu makes him nervous, so why sub him on? Well, I don't think he was saying that he makes him nervous. I think he was, the way he said it is that Dorgu is nervous and that he can feel the nervousness from Dorgu. I think he was trying to say, like, Dorgu is so nervous that you can feel you can feel the nervousness from him. I don't think he was saying that. I don't think he said Dorgu makes me nervous. I don't think that's what he was trying to say. I think he was trying to say, like, he's so anxious that the anxious is so, it's so loud that, like, you can feel it yourself when you're there watching him. Like, you can feel the anxious aura coming off of him. But why he would put him on? Because I think he looked at it, and I just think it's wrong thinking. I think it's wrong decision. I think he kind of looked at it and said, well, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt on this one, because this is what was told to us. Let's say Diogo was actually injured, and he called for a substitution. In my mind, there's only two options that we could do in this case. And clearly, for whatever reason, and we don't know the reason, and I would like somebody to ask him, because I would like the answers to know. I would like to know if Luke Shaw can actually play left back or not. Because then obviously it lays out a different thing. Because if he can't play left back, but even in that situation, you could have played him left back, but he subbed Luke Shaw off and put on Martinez. So, because the only answer that I would see to that situation is if Delo is injured and he's calling for a sub, who you putting there? You only got Dorgu. I don't think he wanted to put Dorgu. I don't think he was going to put Dorgu if Delo wasn't injured. But he looked at it and he was like, my two options are put Luke Shaw there, which I don't know if he can do that, and he came off anyway. So I think that kind of paints a certain picture in that, because Luke Shaw didn't have a bad game, and I don't think Luke Shaw had to come off, but he took him off. And that leads me to believe it's a minutes thing. Or maybe it was tactical because Luke's not that good in the air and Lisandro's better in the air. I don't know. But it's either Luke Shaw goes there or Dorgu goes there. And clearly he was like, I'm not doing the Luke Shaw thing, and he went with Dorgu, and that's what happened there. Mondero says exactly that is a manager who is out of his depth, I'm afraid. I like Amorim, but this is Man United. We can't cave in at home to a poor West Ham side, who third bottom. Ugarte is a poor player. Well, you're right, and I agree. But I'll play devil advocate on this just a little bit. Because, again, while he has his faults, and he's made his mistakes, and he deserves his blame, I always like to play a little bit of devil advocate. And my brain says to me that there's a possibility, and I would like to look at from this aspect as well. If we had different personnel, in the team. Like, if we had better midfielders and maybe a better wing back or something like that, something that fits his system a lot more, that the players actually can produce a job a lot better than the ones that we have right now. I don't know. Now, maybe he still does it, because maybe what you're saying is that, again, he's out of his depth, and maybe that's just the pure fact. But maybe part of the reason this is happening is because of all the things that have sort of led to this moment, in that the fact of that Ineos chose to go with the guy that plays like this. Ineos chose to hire a manager that plays this way, and we don't have the players that complements the way that he plays. Bringing him in the part of the season that he didn't want to, but he didn't want to pass up on the opportunity, so he chose to, in his side, risk it. And then also not being able to make, after you make those decisions, not being able to obviously make the extensive amount of changes in personnel in terms of bringing new players in and getting old players out to shape the squad in a better way. Maybe he wouldn't, if we were able to do that, if we had money, if we didn't keep certain players here, like if they sold Bruno, or if we weren't stuck with Casemiro because he's on $350,000 a week, he has 1 year left on his contract, and he's like 32, 33, 34 years old, or whatever, however old he is, and he had different players, maybe he wouldn't be right now in a sort of position where he does those things, because he would trust the team more, and he wouldn't be making these decisions. In terms of he's managing games from a scared position, not for his job in a literal sense, but in the sense of that he doesn't trust the team to get the job done for him, and he's made it abundantly clear all he wants to do is win. He's not necessarily afraid of losing his job, because, again, I would argue, if you're afraid of losing your job, he changed the whole fucking thing right now. So, he would do exactly what everybody's saying. He would go to a 4-2-3-1. He would do whatever it would take for him to not lose his job, because quite clearly, it's not going well. But he doesn't obviously fear losing his job enough to change his system or anything like that. So that's not that high up the priority list. His whole thing is he hates losing and he wants to win. And I think he feels quite embarrassed by the fact that he is getting exposed and he's getting losses. And so I think he's making these changes like that. Now, if he had the players, maybe he wouldn't be doing this sort of thing. But this is sort of a cause and effect type of thing that might be going on here. Or he's just out of his depth. I mean, but we can never really know the answer to that, because we don't have the players. There's no situation to like hit a button and, it's not a video game. You can't do restart at last checkpoint and try something different. We are where we are. We have what we have, and what's happening is happening at the end of the day. So, also, Ugarte is in very poor form, but even by his standards, he looks so bereft of confidence. Bringing him on was like throwing into the lion's den. Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because, and listen, I'm not trying to single out one player, but I mean, I did see this and I thought it was quite interesting, and I thought we should probably have a conversation about it, or at least acknowledge it and talk about it. And since you bring up Ugarte, I do have this. Not that, I have this. And this has come out, obviously, after the West Ham match. And if it's too small, I'm going to read it. But it says, United concede 14 of 23 goals with Ugarte on the pitch. Ugarte, who signed last summer to shore up the midfield, has played just 359 minutes, mostly as a substitute, in chasing situations. Every bench appearance has seen United concede within 10 minutes. The team sits mid-table in the Premier League with a 5-4-5 record after 14 matches, having leaked 19 goals there are, and 21, having leaked 19 goals there, and 21 overall, including cups, Ruben Amorim's 30% win rate continues amid defensive woes, but the club plans to back him through the challenges ahead. This is a concerning stat that he is a defensive midfield player that we bring in to help us defensively. And for whatever reason, every time we sub him on, because he's not really ever been a starter, we sub him on and we concede goal. It's like you couldn't even write some shit like that, because it's so ironic that it feels like it's not real. It feels like it's a giant joke. How is it that we're putting on a defensive midfielder that we got to help us, and when we put him on, this stat has accumulated over every time he comes on that we concede within 10 minutes of him appearing on the pitch? You know, it's crazy that that's a thing. Because it's the total opposite effect of what is supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen is he's supposed to come on the pitch and we're supposed to be, you know, conceding less. The point of him coming on the pitch is to help defensively and do defensive work so that we concede less goals. And he's coming on the pitch and we're conceding goals almost immediately as soon as he comes on the pitch. So, maybe it just wasn't a good buy. I don't know what's really happening here. I don't really know, like, you know, the overall picture, why that's happening. But you can't ignore the fact that he comes on the pitch and we're conceding goals. There's like a whole statistic, and it's a reoccurring theme, and there is a track record of it. So that's an issue, a huge issue. And I think probably it also kind of calls out as to why, you know, he's not playing a lot. He's not getting picked. Cass is playing every game, and he's reluctant to put on Manuel Ugarte. And it happened again, obviously, at West Ham, and that's why this was trending, and then that's why this popped up, because he came on and we conceded the goal. Is it all his fault? I don't think it's all his fault, but clearly it's part of he's part of some sort of you know, he's playing a role in some part of the other problem that has to do with the team, with the aspect of the team. So I would have given Lacey a few cameos off the bench. Well, I mean, he gave us a response to that, and I pointed that out the other day, because again, I said I'm not saying he's right. No, I'm not saying he's right about it. But he gave everybody a clear indication into his thinking about it. You know, he talked about Mano. He laughed. He didn't believe that's what was going to help the team. You heard his explanation of why he thinks the team is doing, or things are happening to the team. He doesn't believe. You know, even after that result, even after that happened, he sat there and he didn't believe for 1 second that if I put Mano instead of Ugarte, it would have been different, and we wouldn't have conceded the goal, and we wouldn't have drew, and we would have got 3 points. That's essentially what his thinking was. That's what he was telling everybody. And then he talked about Lacey, and the way he talked is a clear, like, view into his mindset of how he views these things. And that he talked about, I have other players that I could play in this position. He said they're more prepared. They're internationals. He said, and I'm putting these players in because they give me the best possible opportunity to win the match in that moment. So, in other words, he's saying Shea Lacey is a young, inexperienced guy. And for him, logically, why would I put on a young, inexperienced guy? If you're going to rank it by percentage, maybe he would say it would give me a 5% chance if I put this experienced international player, who hasn't even actually done anything for me, but he doesn't seem to take that into account. But if I put this other international experienced player that has failed constantly before, it gives me a 15-20% chance of something positive happening in the match. This is what this is what he's saying, and this is what he believes. Like, and that's why, like, a lot of people, they go into the mindset of everything he says is a lie. And I think that's actually a bad thing to do, because I don't think everything he says is a lie. And if you think that, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're not really understanding the manager and where he's coming from, and then you're not getting what the fuck is actually happening, and you're going down a road of making up shit that's not actually in reality, to understand it good and get a better understanding of the situation. So, I mean, I think we all would have given Lacey in one of the matches, in any of the matches. I think probably 90% of the fan base, 95, maybe even 99, at some point during the match, we would have been like, fuck it. Put him on. Let's see what you got, kid. Maybe you do something fucking fantastic for us. Or maybe you struggle. But, at this point, what's there to really lose? But he clearly, obviously doesn't think that way. And he clearly, obviously looks at it in a different way. And he's focused on something totally different. He doesn't believe in that. He doesn't believe that that's the best way. At all. Taking off players when they're on a yellow card, that will just make players anxious. I had this when I was on loan at Derby County in the 90s. He would pull players off if they collected a booking. Well, I find that interesting. Can you please explain a little bit more on Daryl? Because I've always had the opinion and thought, but I would like to hear. I would like to hear from you on it, because you played the game at a high level. I played the game. No, I'm not going to do what Goldbridge does. Although I do find that funny. Yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit more on that, because I've always sort of looked at it as like, you don't want the player, and I think many fans do, like, when he pulled off Heaven, I think everybody was like, yeah, pull off Heaven because he's got a yellow. And we seem a bit shaky back there, and we don't want a red. So, but you played the game. So I'm interested to sort of hear it from the players' aspect in that case of how it makes players anxious. Because off the top of my head, I think it would make things a bit calmer if that was to happen. But actually, now I'm thinking about it, I think I can kind of see how it could make anxiousness, because you don't want to get the yellow. Maybe this is it, maybe it's not. But the thing that just popped in my head, you don't want to get the yellow because you don't want to come off. And now that's playing in your head. Ondero says that's why Sir Jim has come out and say the project is 3 years. What's happening here is we are now in the middle of a storm. Fans are paying a fortune to watch this every week. Expect more. Well, yeah, I think I talked about this the other day as well. Now, that could very well, in terms of sort of, there could be a cynical aspect to it, but there could also be maybe this aspect to it, in that, I said this yesterday. I think they've grossly and incompetently misjudged this fan base. And I think the reason why they went for Ruben, and maybe not somebody more experienced, and maybe not somebody that has, won things, is because if you go for a young, sort of inexperienced manager, one that was touted as to have potential to maybe become one of the best, the next best big things, and you give him to us, and then you're also simultaneously saying, listen, this process at Manchester United is going to take time. It's going to take 3 or 4 years. Well, for you to get the fans to be on your side, to buy into giving you the time of 3 or 4 years, because we don't have the money. There's a mess at Manchester United, and there's the Glazers and all this shit. So if we're going to do it the way we're going to do it, it is going to have to take 3 to 4 years. But to buy yourself more time, to buy people to get people to buy into it more, and give you more slack and give you a little bit more rope, what's the better angle, appearance wise? You go get Carlo Ancelotti, who's won everything, and you put him in, and because you know what's going to happen. You get Carlo Ancelotti. They're going to demand for us to be challenging 1 to 2 seasons and winning immediately. Or you go get some inexperienced guy who's doing well. There's some hype around him. He hasn't won anything. But you bring him into United and you try to pass it off on the angle of, listen, he needs time. He's a young guy. He's been inexperienced and, he's doing good things. And, just give him time. Things will turn around and things will be good. What's the better angle for you to hit there? What's easier for you? To try and sell some young, inexperienced guy for your 3 or 4 years' time? Or to bring in a proven winner or somebody that's at a higher level and say, no, but they still need 3 to 4 years' time? Because people aren't going to accept that. If you bring in, I don't know why his name is slipping my mind, but if you bring in the PSG manager, the current PSG manager, you bring him into United instead of Ruben. If you bring in Ancelotti instead of Ruben, these guys have won things. They're top managers. Do you think the majority of the fan base would be willing to be like, now let's give them 3 or 4 years? No, they're going to be like, they've won things. They're experienced. They should be getting this done in 1 to 2 seasons. We should be up there immediately. But at the same time, I think they also know that we are financially restricted. The Glazers have put us into a disaster and a mess. And Sir Jim has put in whatever money he's put in himself. And he's not going to put in more money because he doesn't own enough of the club. So I think they looked at it and they go, we can't do it that fast. So we need to do something to buy public perception on our side. And I think that's why they went for him. And I think that's why they went this route. Because I think they tried to sell everybody that he's young and inexperienced. Look, we're doing something totally new. It's going to be great, but you have to give us time. It's something totally different than we've done before. He plays a totally different way. We're going to need to build the squad up. Give us the 3 to 4 years time. It's going to work. It's going to work. And I think they totally misjudged his fan base. Because I think they thought they might be able to get away with it. And maybe they also miscalculated and misjudged how ugly and how bad that it has gone and it could go. And then I think now they're sweating about it. I think now they are absolutely sweating about it because I think they've realized that they got the calculations wrong. They fucked up and they're getting in a position where they're getting pinned into a corner and they don't want to be there at all. So, I think Amorim said something about Ugarte not being the same player, having the same standards as he was at Sporting. Well, he didn't come out and directly say that. That was reported that apparently he said this at the end of last season directly to Ugarte when he was addressing Alejandro Garnacho at the end of the season. There was some sort of meeting or something or some discussion took place in sort of I guess maybe a public setting for the players of Manchester United in some sort of group aspect. And while he was essentially telling Garnacho to go find another club because you're out of here, Ugarte was there as well, and maybe some other players. And apparently that's what he said directly to Ugarte. And there was a little bit extra added onto that in that he was saying something along the lines of like, I'm telling you this because I know there's more for you to give or something like that. But essentially, yes, that was reported to what he said. Did he actually say it? I mean, you can say yes, you can choose not to believe it. Do we have the actual, is there a videotape of it? Is there a recording? Has Ugarte come out and said it publicly? He hasn't. Has Ruben been asked this and directly addressed it? He hasn't. So it's speculation, but he might have done that. So Blaze is out, says Lucky. Yep. I'm going to support a new club. Well, I mean, I get you. I can't do that, but um, Andera says Ugarte gets run past so much during games, it doesn't help when he has Bruno, a player who is playing out of position next to him. But that said, his awareness on the pitch and decision making is poor, and I think that's all valid criticisms. And I think those are all valid points in that. I think they're all true. I think all of that is probably happening. And you know what? That probably is a good indication as to why that statistic, this trend that I bring up is happening. I mean, logically, if you think about it, and thank you, because sometimes when I'm doing the show, my brain is thinking about 80 things, so it's hard to think through one specific thing. But yeah, you saying that paints a clearer picture. I mean, think about Ugarte coming on for Cass and playing in the midfield with Bruno. And we all know how Bruno is already with Casemiro. And if Casemiro is quite clearly the better defensive mid, and he's better than Ugarte, and you're putting on Ugarte, who's not as good as him, and you're still having the same problems that Bruno does when he's with Casemiro, well then quite obviously that's why when Ugarte comes on, we concede, because he's not as good, and the midfield is then even worse than it already is, and Bruno is still doing Bruno things that he's doing there anyway. So, that is I think, very valid. Circus club like Liverpool, Tottenham. Well, that's my whole thing. I don't want to become Tottenham Hotspur, sorry. I don't want to become Tottenham Hotspur. You know, I've heard some people, I heard a couple clips from Goldbridge today, and he was talking something about along the lines of like, he said something along the lines of like he'd rather be 12th playing with some kids and playing some good football than being second or fourth or third playing this shit football with like sort of no direction and no, whatever we're seeing now, something to that extent. And I get what he's trying to say. I don't think I really agree with that though, because I'm like, if we were up there, then I don't think I disagree. I don't think we don't have no direction. I don't think the football would necessarily be crap, because obviously it has to be good enough to get the results to be up in that position. But when he said that second part about, playing nice football and being in 10th, I heard that and I was like, that sounds like fucking Spurs to me, though. Like, I kind of get what you mean, because it's United, and we've always played a certain distinct style of football that gets people up on the edge of their seats, and, it's entertaining, and that's what this club has always been about. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, if you know anything about Tottenham, what have they done for, like, almost an entire existence? They usually always just moan and bitch about the football not looking nice, and they don't win shit. And it's like, well, I don't really want to go in that direction either. I don't want to just play nice football and be in 10th. I want the team to perform well. I want the team to get into good, positions. Going to support Newcastle United, how can you do? You can't do that. Lucky's being sorry. He's trolling. Lucky's trolling. He's being sarcastic. Andresito says, why put him on the bench then? Did the thing we did he think we would be winning 5-0 and give the young lad 10 minutes? Well, maybe one of his hopes was that we could actually win 3 or 4 and score and be comfortable, and maybe he puts him on. Andresito, maybe one of the reasons why he's there is because we're sort of at a lack of options attacking wise, and he wouldn't necessarily be there if, let's say, we had Sesko and maybe there wasn't some other injury concerns in sort of that aspect. Maybe he's solely just there just to be an emergency backup and nothing more. Maybe it's both of those things. Maybe the idea is that, you know, before he said what he said that, you know, he will get a time to play. Maybe he's sort of prepping him for the period for, you know, the AFCON when we lose Mbeumo and Diallo and Mazawari, and he's going to be forced to maybe use him in that way. You know, there could be a couple different reasons. I don't know exactly what the reason is, and I get why you're questioning it, and it makes sense, but it could be probably a few different reasons. And off the top of my head, one of those three seem logical. I just don't know which one it is, to be honest. We have a fan base loves sticking around 6 to 8 years. Luke Shaw, Bruno Fernandes, Ugarte, average. Ray says Ruben has to wake up and smell the coffee. He's full of crap. Well, again, I think that's in a personal opinion, in terms of if you believe he's full of crap. Because I think as a person, as an individual, I think he believes. I don't think he's making the things up that he says or thinks. I think he truly believes it. I don't think he's faking that. So I wouldn't consider him to be full of crap, because full of crap is him just making things up and not doing things that he doesn't actually truly believe in. I think everything that he's doing, he truly believes in it, and I think he truly believes the way he's going is the best way. So I wouldn't say he's full of crap in that sense. Because I think being full of crap is he's being fake. I don't think he's being fake in the things that he's doing. I think he's doing what he believes is the best thing. I think the conversation is that he's not smelling the coffee. He's not seeing the errors of his ways. He's refusing to change, so he's being very stubborn. And he's being foolish in that he thinks that he's going to be able. To me, it's like he's trying to walk through a brick wall when you can when you can walk around the fucking wall. You know, that's how I see it. It feels like to me like he's trying to go the most hardest and difficult way when he doesn't actually need to do it. But because of what he believes, and because he's so stubborn, and that he refuses to accept that he might be wrong about some things, and that it might not be the actual way, and maybe that he should change it, instead of walking around the brick wall, he's just trying to go straight through it. And I think we all know what happens if you try to go through a fucking brick wall. You get hurt, and you don't go through the wall. Did you catch the Villa game? That was a tactical masterclass. I missed it. It was too early for me, and I wasn't going to wake up for that one, to be honest. So, taking cash out to add another attacking player who scored the winner. I only saw the highlights. I missed it. It was too early for me. I didn't want to wake up that time and watch. But I woke up happy because I looked at the result and I was like, well, I kind of wanted to draw, but you know what? Fuck it. Arsenal lose. We'll take it. But yeah, I missed it. So, when will we grow mentality on the pitch? 2029. Well, I don't know. Lawrence Burry says, do you think the players have given up on him? Do you think they might hold back from now on to get him replaced? Well, I think there's always a possibility that could happen. I don't know if it's happened yet, because it could very well be. It might just not be at the level that we sort of have seen in the past, Lawrence, because I think, or at least I hope, something that comes with Ineos's job, in my opinion, is, like I said before, they are responsible for holding the manager accountable, but they are also responsible for holding the players responsible. And in the past, that sort of responsibility was definitely 100% non-existent, because we've seen what happened. Players going over the manager's head, going behind the manager's back, going directly to the CEO, and the CEO siding and agreeing with the players and making decisions against the manager, specifically Mourinho, and not even like going to Mourinho and addressing it, just doing things literally totally without him knowing and going behind his back. I don't think that can happen here, because if they do their job properly and they actually are doing what I'm saying in terms of holding the manager accountable and holding the players accountable sort of to the same level with the same rules, well, the manager might get fired and sacked because he failed to do certain aspects of his job correct and he couldn't get the results. But then also, if you're a player and you know that, then you have to be afraid for yourself as well. Because if you want to stay at this football club and you want to continue on your sort of journey here, then you can't really afford to basically essentially give up and down tools, because you're gonna receive a punishment for it too. So maybe in a certain sense, like maybe mentally they've sort of given up, and maybe they just have less belief in the whole thing. They're not believing in themselves. They don't have confidence in themselves. They don't have confidence in him. They don't have belief that this is going to work out. And maybe that's why we're seeing the levels of the performance drop. But I think that can only dip so far, because I think if they give a shit and that aspect is really there, they then have to actually be worried about themselves. Because if you just go out there and you go, fuck this guy and fuck the system, and I'm just gonna like do whatever the fuck I want and walk and not try so he could get sacked so I could get something different and we can move, for me, the back of my head, I'd feel like I'd have eyes in the back, watching me, like behind me, like somebody's creeping over me. Like, I can do this to sack the manager. I can give up on him, but there are eyes watching me sort of do this, and they can sort of take that into account and be like, you know what? Yeah, Ruben did a shit job and he got sacked, but remember what this guy was doing on the pitch during that time when that happened. We don't want that attitude. We don't want that mentality. We don't want this sort of personality at the football club. And then the going got tough. He gave up on them. Get him out of the football club. So I would hope that aspect's there. Because to me, it doesn't seem like, we've seen players down tools and give up totally 100% on the manager. I don't really feel like that's totally happening to that level of an extent, but there's definitely got to be some aspect of a drop in morale or belief, because it happens naturally with results anyway. I mean, if all the matches, if we just won these matches, it's a different feeling. There's a different belief than what it is now. And so, if you don't get the results, naturally it's going to happen. Lucky is on one. He is quite angry. Anders is the manager at Derby did this based on two reasons. Talk about pulling off players for yellow cards. One, if they had a fiery character, worrying that another yellow follows straight away, or if it's a young player, may hinder confidence. I mean, I find that interesting. I don't know what to make on it, other than the fact that, I mean, I've always considered that that's the move that you probably should do. In my opinion, I'd probably do the same. If somebody had like if you, like, for example, like even Casemiro, like, does he have a fiery attitude? I wouldn't necessarily say yeah, but his time here, he gets a yellow. Somehow he finds to get another yellow. So, like, if I was there and Cass gets a yellow, I'd most likely take Cass off because like there's probably a good chance he's going to get a yellow, and you don't want the red. A young player, I get it as well, and it makes sense to me. I never really considered if it would have negative impacts. I always kind of looked at it as sort of a positive in the terms of that, you know, you're looking out for the team, and you're sort of giving yourself your best chance to win the match, and that so you don't go down a man and you're playing with 10 men. But it's interesting. Never really looked at it that way. Ruben's mouth and results don't get you nowhere. Says Ray. Well, really, I mean, I could care. I to a certain extent, I could really care less what they really say. It's, at the end of the day, it's really all about the results. And like we've said before, you don't get the results, you deal with the consequences. That's it. Like this game, this sport is performance based. It's results based. Like there's only two things that are ever going to really happen. You either get the results and you stay and you do good. You don't get the results, you fail and you lose your job. So that's all it is. We have a match on Monday, quite clear. You must get 3 points. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You don't do it, deal with the repercussions, and that's it. And then I could care fucking less. Like really, I could care less. I don't care. If he loses against Wolves and he gets sacked, what am I gonna do? Cry? I don't give a shit. You lost against Wolves. That's it. It's over. You were given all these opportunities. You didn't get it done. Bye bye. We'll see you. We'll see you around sometime. Maybe. Go to the next guy. That's it. That's it. But along the path, I have no problem giving people opportunities and shit. But at some point, things. At some point, you get to a crossroads, and it's either you're gonna succeed or you're not gonna succeed. And once you sort of cross that point, then the conversation, the time for opportunities, the time for chances, the time for benefit of the doubt, the time of trust, that's over. That's in the past. We've moved past that. So, Bruno Fernandes, Ugarte are going to down tools Monday, manager. Well, I don't know if they're going to down tools. I don't think they're downing tools. I don't think they're downing. I don't think anybody can say they're downing tools. They are trying to a certain extent. It's just not very good. It's just not good enough, is it? Because plain and simple, if it was good enough, we'd be getting the results. So they are trying. I mean, we tried to create opportunities. We tried to score. We tried to defend. We tried to win the match. We just don't do it. So, the levels aren't good enough. But naturally, I mean, you walk into a dressing room with a team that's inconsistent or not getting results, and you see the feeling in there compared to a team that's, on a 8-game winning streak. It's obviously going to be totally different. So naturally, just by de facto of, how the results go, if you don't get good results, then the mentality and, sort of the belief and the feeling it's naturally just going to go low. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what manager you have. And this is why ultimately results are always the ultimate deciding factor in everything. It's going to decide how your team is going to go. It's going to define your season. It's going to define your job. It defines whether you get to stay or go. It defines whether, you have a chance to do something or you don't. And same exact thing I said for Erik ten Hag. Get the results. You get the results. You give yourself the argument to say that I can continue here. You don't get the results. There's nothing to argue, and you no longer have your job, and you're out. So, It's just how it is. It's just what it be. And listen, we're fans. All we can do is sort of watch and see how it unfolds and see how it plays out. So, um, let me just double check for some of the news because I mean it's been a good conversation, but there was some other things that I sort of wanted to just get into real quick. And JJ Gabriel, one that's been talked about a lot of hype around him, was involved in the under 18s today match. I believe they won, and there was a nice clip of JJ Gabriel showing off some of his skills at that level. I would say very sort of young CR7 Neymar type of vibes he's got going on there. So I mean, you could see that in his game. I've seen it in his game. And some other smaller news: JC Carrick, who is the son of Michael Carrick, came on to make his debut for the Manchester United under 18s as well today. So that's always good to hear. That's another one of sort of our former players with their children, and I always hope that this would happen at the club at one point. I mean, we got Carrick's son, we got Rooney's son, we got the Fletcher twins. I don't know if we got anybody else, but I mean that's a good amount right there, right off the bat. And yeah, the under 18s beat Newcastle 3-0. I wish our first team can beat Newcastle 3-0. And we're gonna have to play Newcastle soon. I think it's in like the next 3 matches or so. And yeah, I don't think we stand a chance to beat Newcastle 3-0. But yeah, I wish our first team could do what our under 18s and under 21s could do at that level. One of the other stories, again, sort of following up over the past 2 days or so, is that Napoli want to agree a loan deal for Kobe Mainoo within a couple weeks. They are very heavily interested in him. I bring up in the beginning of the show, Manchester United rejected Roma's loan for Joshua Zirkzee with an option to buy. The buy option was conditional on Roma qualifying for the Champions League. I find that interesting. I don't know if they told us exactly why it was rejected, because there's 2 aspects here. If they rejected it because the buy option was if it was solely because of the buy option and it was because it was conditional on Roma qualifying for the Champions League, then it's like one of 2 ways. They either want to actually permanently sell him, so they don't want it to be conditional. They want it to be guaranteed regardless. Or they don't want to sell him, and they don't want that buy option involved in the deal, and they're looking for a loan. And they don't want to have sort of a guaranteed buy option in it because maybe they're unsure of what exactly they're going to do with him. Whether it's sell him or let him go on loan and then try to sell him, if the loan goes well, they could get more money because maybe they don't want to do these sorts of guaranteed buy options, because if you do loan somebody out and they do very well and the price is fixed, then you're kind of screwed. Whereas if they do go out and do well, you might be able to get a higher price than for the price that you fix it at. So, the under 21s lost 3-0 today, though, in a behind closed doors match with Arsenal. United finished with 10 men as well. James Overy was sent off with 2 bookings. But Arsenal did have Gabriel Jesus, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Max Downing all got on the pitch there. There was this weird story that I don't know why this is coming out now, and I don't know why this is a thing, but something came out today that said that last season, apparently, Lisandro Martinez took TV criticism from Paul Scholes so personally that a clear-the-air meeting between the two was arranged, and then for reasons unknown, it never took place. Which is just like, I don't know, it's so random. for that to sort of happen and go down, and we don't even know why it didn't happen. So, oh boy, non-United news, but it's sort of a soap opera type of thing here. Obviously, Leeds and Liverpool just played. And Mo Salah has been, I believe he's been benched for the past 3 matches. And Mo Salah has come out after this match and said, it's very clear that someone wants me to get all the blame. The club promised in the summer a lot of promises for me. And so far, I am on the bench for 3 games. All I can say is keep the promises. Well, I mean, that sounds a bit like some shit that's gone on at United at some point in the past 12 years. And from a United perspective, I could tell you that's not a very good thing to be having at your football club. And I don't think we've really seen that happening at Liverpool's under their period of where they've been good, specifically, especially under Jurgen Klopp. I can't remember something like this happening. So they've dropped points today. They did not get a win against Leeds, and things are not looking very good over there, and there is a turmoil. And yeah, all I could say from a United perspective, seeing how we've been through the shit for 12 years, that is a very worrying sign if you are a Liverpool fan. That is not good. That is not something you want to see happening at your football club if you are a fan of that. So, yeah, yikes for them. But not my club, not my problem, and I hope you continue to be shit. So, welcome to the club. I welcome all the rival fans. Welcome to the club. Something that pisses me off about the rival fans the most is they speak in a manner they don't understand, and they don't get it. They really don't get it. They talk like, because we're shit now, and they're better than us, that they're always going to be better than us for the end of the remaining of all of life. And they're fools for that, because as we see, football and life is strange, and you can win the Premier League, and then you can be what Liverpool are now. And life comes at you very fast. And I will apply that to all the Arsenal fans, all the Chelsea fans, even the Manchester City fans. And I always tell them, enjoy it while it lasts, but don't talk to me or pretend like it's going to last for fucking ever, because it won't. And when it ends and you're back in the mud, keep the same energy, and I will be there waiting for you. I just had this conversation with one of my friends last night, because he's an Arsenal fan, and we're online and we're in a group. We're in a Discord with other people, and we're not even talking football. And mid conversation to me saying, he goes, what happened to United? He goes, what happened? Starts laughing. He goes, you tied West Ham, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, one, you only have something to say when we drop points or lose. You never say anything when we win. And 2, I was like, you're going to have a go at me. I'm going to have a go at you now. I was like, I don't open my mouth when you guys don't do shit, because you're better than us. But I was like, your manager hasn't won shit for 6 years. He's been there for 6 years. And I told them yesterday what Uncle Patrice Evra's famous quote was, that watching Arsenal is like watching Netflix, and that you always have to wait till next season. And what happened today is exactly why he deserves that. Because I tried to explain to him, you are constantly talking to me in a manner like you have already succeeded anything that we've ever done, just because you are currently in a better shape than us. You haven't won a league title. You haven't won a Champions League. Your manager hasn't won shit, and he's been there for 6 years. Don't talk to me like you are the kings and champions, because I grew up with this. I know what it takes to win a league. I've seen it. We've been through it so many times. And I keep telling him, celebrate being first and all you want. There's a lot of football left. And I was like, a lot of things can happen. And I'm like, you're gloating like you've already won it. And that's a big mistake. And I was like, I'm not a fan of your club, and you are. I was like, but I don't believe in your club. And I was like, your club can bottle this shit just like they've done in the past. And I was like, and I told them, listen, if you do it at the end, I'll give you a congratulations. But until you actually do it, you guys are still nothing to me. You're still nothing to me. So, you know, these rival fans, we've let them get too big. We've let them get too big of their heads. They need to be humbled. And maybe naturally they'll get humbled. But yeah, but there's no other real news or anything like that. So listen. Just to recap it off, 3 points is an absolute must on Monday. Anything else other than that is a disgrace, and I don't see how you can continue as being the manager after that at this football club. And Ineos will have to actually do something, I think, if that happens. I don't expect, if we lose, I don't expect it to happen right after Wolves. I would, in probably the most realistic circumstance in the way that they operate, it would be a loss to Wolves. Let me get the full schedule so I can accurately say this. Yeah. Give us our matches, please. There, a loss and a draw is a loss. I'm not going to sit here and say draw and loss, draw and loss. A win, it's a win or nothing. Okay? It's a win or nothing against the worst team in the Premier League. There's no exceptions. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no half glass full on this one. It's a win or nothing against Wolves. Anything else is pure disgrace and an embarrassment, and it cannot be. You just can't continue. But anyway, if he does his job, then obviously, you know, he'll be here, Bournemouth and Villa and probably Newcastle, and then we'll have to play Wolves again. And that's the totality of December, which will then bring us to January. But for me, if you lose to Wolves, we then have to play Bournemouth, Villa, and Newcastle. And if you lose to Wolves, and like I'll play it out this way. If you lose to Wolves and we're home against Bournemouth, if you draw or lose, and then you lose to Villa, and you lose to Newcastle, that's probably when it's over. Because but then probably our season is over by that time. Because, I mean, Bournemouth is in and around us. That's a 6-pointer. Villa is above us, but it's still sort of like a 6-pointer. And Newcastle is in and around us, and that's a 6-pointer. If you lose 3 6-pointers, if you can't pick up a win in that, then it's done. It's totally done. And it's not even just about like semantics of do you think he should stay or go. It's the table, the points, where we will be, the gap, it'll be over. It's done. It's totally done. So then Ineos will have nothing to try and sort of hide behind. They will have to come out and do what is obviously going to be needed. But yeah, got to beat Wolves. No excuses. And then, you know, something that could also happen is that, you know, maybe the results are just inconsistent. Maybe you beat Bournemouth. Maybe you take an L to Villa or Newcastle. Maybe you draw with one of them. So, you know, you get 2 wins here. You get a draw and a loss. So maybe that happens. You know, right now, literally anything can happen. Some things are more likely to happen, but right now, I mean, we can lose all the next 5 matches in a row. That's always a possibility. We can split them where it's, a win, a draw, a loss, and a loss, or a win, win, draw, and a loss, or a win, draw, draw, draw. Anything can happen. So we're just going to have to let it play out and go into the context of what it is when we get there. And, whatever happens, happens. And we got to move from there. So, and then we see what it's looking like. And if it's looking like it's dead and it's done, then it's dead and it's done. If it somehow gets turned around, which I don't really believe, because I've lost belief in this, and I can't trust them to do to get this job done. I tried to give them a few opportunities to do it. They blew it 4 times already. So that's it for me. Maybe 3 times is 1 time too many, but 4 times is definitely enough, So we'll see how that goes. Axe is here. Sorry, I didn't have the chat up. I was looking at the internet. Hi, you're live again. Yes. I said I was going live yesterday. We had to do the preview for the Wolves match because I'm not going live tomorrow. So, Guimarães' goal was amazing. Amorim out. I mean, we know. We get it. Lindelof cook gave my kisses to his wife. Nice little evergreen in the background. You've seen that. It's a bit hard to see because of the red light, and it's a bit blurry back there. But yeah, thank you. Lucky says we need to score 2 or 3 goals against next low team. Mason Mount, Cunha, Diallo expect to be training tomorrow for Monday match. I mean, they're all going to be training. They're all going to be there. We need performances. Man, we need good ones and we need results. This is where we are at this moment in time. And I've split this, I think, as easily as you can split it. He's lost the majority of the support. I still think it's probably like 60-40 split right now. But it certainly wasn't this way about a week ago or so. Or 2 weeks ago. And where we are at a crossroad. You either win, you turn it around, you make the picture better, and you get more time. Or you lose, you fail, and you're out. That's it. That's it. That's where we find ourselves. You don't like it. My response to that is too bad, because it's just where we are. It's just the reality of it. This is where we are. And you're either going to succeed or you're going to fail. And whatever happens, it's out of my control. I ain't playing on the pitch, and I ain't managing the team, and I ain't making decisions. So it's all on them. It's on Ruben, and it's on the players. Whatever they decide to do and whatever happens, that's it. And, if it's bad, then deal with the consequences. If it's positive, then take the rewards. That's it. 13% win rate is unacceptable. Is that in totality? When do they go to AFCON, says Lawrence Burry, after Bournemouth? Yes, literally the day of Bournemouth. So what is supposed to happen and what they told us is that they will be available for the match. They are going to be, play the match. And then after that match is over, they will leave us. So, put it into a little bit more perspective. And maybe to cause you a little bit more worry and maybe a little bit more anxiety if you're worried about the team and you want the team to do good. We have 2 matches left before we lose Mbeumo, Diallo, and Mazouari. 2. And 1 is in 2 days. So after 2 days from now, we will have 1 match left. And then they're gone. And this, in those circumstances, it is a shit time because clearly the form isn't there and the results aren't there. And when we lose them, the next match we got to go play is Villa, and we're away from home. So we're playing at Villa Park. And the match after that, we're home and we're playing Newcastle. So, not the best time to be losing our better players when the team is not getting the results and they're playing like shit. So, circumstances, shit happens. This is why you need to be doing the best you can along the way, and you need to get shit done along the way to give yourself the best possible chance. I said the same thing for Erik ten Hag, and I'll say the same thing for this guy. Like, you did certain things. We got certain results out of it. They didn't go your way. Now you need to deal with the hand that you have. And the hand that you have is the pressure is increasingly on you. We have not had good performances or results. This was sort of the easier period, and you failed to secure your position more. And now we're going to go back into a harder fixture run. And if you can't get the results, you're gonna get sacked. That's it. That's it. Plays are out. Amad Diallo, Cunha, Mason Mount. I expect you to start together, make press, scoring, header, and quick break and play. But do we do that, Lucky? My thing is, Lucky, I think it's a good idea, and it sounds nice, right? And I think it's what should happen. But my question, Lucky, would be, why would you expect them to do that? Where have they shown us that they do that? Where have they shown us that they're actually going to do that? Why would there be an expectation for them to do that? Because I think we all expect them to be doing that every match, and they let us down constantly. No hasting pass to forward player. I think we all agree with that. But my whole thing to that, Lucky, is they don't do that. And unfortunately, I don't expect them to all of a sudden start doing it. And, just another thing, like, listen, he's in a very bad spot because you can't lose and you can't draw to Wolves. And I still expect them to win. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But 110% when he does win, he's getting no credit. And neither are the players. So it's almost a lose-lose situation to a certain extent, because you can't lose and you can't draw, because it's just diabolical, and it's just devastating effect-wise. But when you win, because I expect them to win, no one's going to give him credit. No one's going to praise him necessarily. It's not going to really change the outlook of things to a certain extent, because people are still going to be like, because everybody's just going to be like, it's fucking Wolves, basically, for the reason as to why we're saying you can't lose. Everybody's going to say, it's Wolves, it means nothing. And then we got to go play Bournemouth, who is obviously way tougher opposition. And then we have to play Villa, and then we have to play Newcastle. And I think those 3 games are going to be big, important. I think this block is going to be sort of the deciding factor to a lot of things. And might be a nail or 2 in the coffin, Because, again, if you lose to Wolves, I don't think they sack him after Wolves. I don't think Ineos will sack him after Wolves. I think all the fans will be like, all right, that's it, it's over. And it'll be heavily like 80% calling for his head and Amorim out, 90% if you lose to Wolves. But I think for Ineos to then do it, it would take probably a loss to Bournemouth, Villa. And if they don't do it by then, and you get to Newcastle and you lose there, then I think after that, there's no way you get past that. But even if you beat Wolves, and we lose, if we beat Wolves, we draw Bournemouth at home. Not a good result because we're home and we need points and we need to win. This is kind of where he's at right now. Like he can't. There's no dropping points. So he's in a position. This is why I just think it's inevitable at this point because there's just no way he gets them to get all these points and go on this run because they've proven they're incapable of doing it. And you're not just gonna. It's not just gonna click all of a sudden. Yeah, I mean, if you beat Wolves and you tie Bournemouth and you lose to Villa and you lose to Newcastle, it's not gonna change anything in favor to save him from it. So we got to see what happens. But listen, I'm gonna get out of here. Shout out to all of you. Appreciate it very much. If you hit the like button, appreciate it. If you didn't, please do that on your way out. We're taking tomorrow off, so everybody enjoy the rest of your Saturday nights and, enjoy your Sundays as well. Be good, stay safe, and we'll see each other on Monday. I will be doing a watch along for the match, and then obviously we will be doing the Red Devil recap for the match as well. So, even if you don't stick around too long for the watch along and you want to watch the match without being involved in the watch along, just come stop by, say hi at some point, whether it's at halftime or, before the match kicks off or, something like that. And then obviously, come and come in full support for the Red Devil recap. And, we'll have a nice big discussion and show about, whatever happens in that match. But yeah, thank you guys for the support. Thank you to all the viewers. Thank you to the people that, even if you watch and you don't get involved in the chat, I appreciate you guys as well. But, obviously, very appreciative to all the people that take time to get involved in the chat, have a conversation, share their opinions and stuff. So yeah, just everybody be good, stay safe, enjoy yourselves, and we'll see each other on Monday. And other than that, take care until then. Good night.